All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next Big Bang workshop here on Zoom. This is called The Pitch, Telling Your Story. And today we've got two amazing speakers. Joanna Siebert, our Associate Director at the Mike and Renee Child Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and then Angela Lindley, who is our Marketing Director at the Institute as well. So welcome you both, and I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Nikki. Welcome, everyone. We've got a few more people joining us, and I do want to apologize in advance. I am having a little bit of technical difficulties with internet today. So if we have any problems between Angela, Nikki, and I think we should have it covered. But just thank you for your patience in case those little mishaps occur. As you know, that's part of being prepared for doing any kind of presentation. So anticipating that there might be some unexpected developments. All right, so I'm going to be sharing my screen today, and I will in a minute give you a preview of what to expect on today's workshop and get that going. So let me first share my screen with everyone. All right, so today, as Nikki mentioned, our focus is really on developing a very effective pitch. And okay, and I'm going to turn off my video. Uh, is my screen working? There you go.
Yes, your screen looks great.
Okay, great. So thank you. I apologize. I'm going to keep my video off just to keep my bandwidth down. But again, we're here today to talk about how to develop a great pitch. And I really love this topic, especially because it's an opportunity to bring some creativity to it as well. So as Nikki mentioned, I'm Joanna Siebert, and I am the Associate Director of the Mike and Renee Child Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And over the last 4+ years that I've been working with the Institute, I've gotten to see some amazing pitches. And it's really fun to see how those ideas develop from very initial stages on through our more advanced competitions and just onto really great things with that ability to be able to communicate an idea. So I'm excited to be able to present today with my colleague, Angela Lindley. Angela, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, it is fantastic to be with you today. As she said, I'm Angela Lindley, and I am our communications manager for the Institute. So I do a lot of this kind of stuff all the time, every day as part of my job. And so I'm really excited to be here to share with you a little bit more about some things that you can do in your pitch to make it fantastic.
All right. So moving forward, I also want to give a big shout out and thank you to our sponsors who make all of this great stuff possible, including the educational services like this workshop and the ability to award really some amazing students and others in our community who do great work as we move forward through competitions and other programs. This is a little preview of our upcoming events and activities. If you haven't been able to catch the other workshops, I definitely recommend that you take a look at those recordings. It's very valuable information, and we've got a couple more coming up. You might notice that in April, there will be another workshop that will go into a deeper dive on doing your pitch. And I can explain that difference a little bit later in this presentation so you have an idea of what we're going to cover here and what might be covered later on in that workshop. But all of them are really wonderful. And I want to encourage everyone, if you're not already registered for Little Bang, we would love to see you there in the audience. It's really a fun and engaging environment to be in. So you can come and watch the pitches and get great ideas and take some tips home for yourself if you are not already registered to participate in Little Bang. And then coming up very soon is our deadline to compete in Big Bang. So we really emphasize that March 3rd deadline. That's your only chance to get into the stream of the competition, although it spans over several months. And so, we really like to think of it as a scaffolded competition where you go through each stage an opportunity to advance and get some mentorship along the way. So I encourage you, if you are interested in that, to go ahead and register using that QR code, or we'll give you an opportunity at the end to ask any questions or reach out to Nikki later for more information. All right, so our agenda today, we're going to start off and we're going to talk a little bit about storytelling, which is, a topic that both Angela and I really love. We believe that we are all storytellers. And so we'll talk about that and how do you turn your story into a really effective pitch. I'm going to share a little bit more about how to get competition ready. And by this, I mean, we can do pitches for many different purposes, but we're going to focus most specifically on a couple of our own competitions. And what does it mean to be sort of feel confident as you move on to that stage and do your pitch? I will also touch on a little bit of pitch structure and content. That's a topic that I think if you look back at the other workshops that have been delivered, you can get more information that is really helpful for that. But I do like to touch on that, especially for those who are newer to doing pitches. It can be a helpful framework for thinking about how to do your pitch. And then I will hand it back over to Angela, and she'll do impactful pitch development and delivery. So, we have a lot of great tips that we offer to you, as well as opportunities for you to then ask questions. So along the way, we will check in with you, ask you to engage with us over chat, share your questions. We really want to make this meaningful and useful for you. So, all right. As we get started, thank you again for being here. I love to think about pitches in terms of the stories that they are telling. We can think about this in terms of our own sort of drive that we all have as humans to share important stories, right? To engage with each other and to not just share information, but to build community and to elicit emotion and to drive people to action. Some of the best stories, as we know, come informally, come through our lived experience. And it's just a really great way to think about when you're thinking about a pitch, which is also very technical and there's some important information to include. You're really crafting a story and you get to include yourself in that, and you get to include the customers that are a part of your venture in the narrative that you are creating. So now I'd love to hear from all of you. You can go ahead and put it in chat. What brings you to this workshop today, and what are you most excited about when it comes to pitches? And then feel free to share any questions that you already have so that we can make sure that we address those throughout the presentation. As I said, there will be specific spots along the way where I'll pause and we will take a couple of questions, and we have time at the end to make sure we have your questions. But now we really want to hear from you. Who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what excites you about either these competitions or delivering pitches or learning more about how to deliver pitches. And we'll keep an eye on that. We want to hear from as many people as we can today and get you really engaged. All right, so now I will share some information specific to our pitches, pitch competitions that we offer through the Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. This is a photo from Little Bang competition. So if you are registered for that or thinking about attending, it's a great sort of visual of what to expect when our teams get up in front of the stage, if you will, and do their pitch. They have a poster that they've created. They've done customer calls that have been submitted, and they are sharing a 90-second pitch. So I like to say, I get this question asked, probably like the number one question is, gosh, what makes a pitch stand out? What makes it really successful? And my answer is going to be that they've all followed the requirements and the guidelines that we've given. Because if they haven't, they won't have made it to where they are in terms of their success. So I really encourage you, we'll keep reminding you, but to take a really close look at what the specific requirements are and the guidelines for each competition if you are entering any competitions. Again, I like to think about pitches. We make them in our everyday life. So there's useful information in this workshop that you could use more informally for making a pitch. But if you are entering a competition, it's really essential that you understand what the deliverables are, what those deadlines are, and specifics within what you need to develop. So Nikki is really our expert at this point in time on all things guidelines and instructions. And so, but you might get instructions from any one of us at the Institute along the way. And so we ask that you check your emails and you look carefully at what we're asking from you, from arrival times on the day that you're going to be pitching to those deadlines of when you need to submit materials and what needs to be included in those materials. So here are some helpful hints on that. We have experienced vicariously through many participants the disappointment that happens when you wait until the last minute and there are technical difficulties and you're not able to proceed in the competition because your computer glitched or you thought you had more time to get it in. So that I would say is one of the most disappointing things for us when people are not able to get things in on time because you will be disqualified if you are not able to submit things. So definitely encourage you to be extra careful, start early, and be prepared for any mishaps that might happen along the way. All right, so here's a little preview. Many of you may be familiar, and Nikki will share more information in the chat about our upcoming competitions. So in this presentation, we are going to present information that is applicable for any pitch that you might develop. But we want you to keep in mind that the requirements are different depending on what that situation is. So as I mentioned, Little Bang is a 90-second pitch, which is very short. So it's very concise and to the point, and you are also presenting with a poster next to you. That's very different than if you advance through the stages of Big Bang and you make it to the finals. That's a very different experience with an 8-minute pitch, a Q&A period, and you have a slide deck that you've developed. So I like to point these out, and I really encourage you, if you are not sure what to expect coming into a competition, you can always ask us that question. Like I mentioned, Little Bang is in front of an audience. The audience does not participate or ask questions during the competition. That's solely the judges are listening. There's no Q&A period, so that 90-second pitch goes very, very quickly. And we help everybody move through that process, but it's a really great experience to get just some practice in front of a group. If you're really just interested even in honing your public speaking, it's a great opportunity to do that. And then if you advance in Big Bang, there's a 2-minute video pitch, so that's just slightly longer, but that is reviewed asynchronously, right? So it's more of a technology-based pitch. You also do submit a slide deck, but that's a separate component. And then, as I said, knowing these elements that are required can help you think about how you're going to approach your pitch and how much time you have to get to the main points that you want to make. So again, the final workshop that we offer in April will be timed to be like much further along in the Big Bang competition. So for those who do make it to that stage, or those who are interested in more of a deeper dive in how to make an effective presentation or pitch.
Joanne, I think we've lost your audio. Is that occurring for others too? Okay.
Okay, am I freezing up?
Okay, your audio's back now.
Okay.
We lost you for a few seconds there.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
All right, so taking a look at this slide, if you have any ideas about what might connect different versions of pitches, what the unifying theme is between those, go ahead and throw that into chat. And I am going to reveal the answer that I have, which is that regardless of the length of time or what the supporting visuals are, your pitch delivers a consistent, clear message with a value proposition. So as we proceed through this presentation and as you move through different opportunities to pitch, think about that. So the core theme of it is that you've really thought through what your message is to the audience, and you've practiced it and refined it so that it is very clear and gives you a chance to really show your personal brand or the brand of your venture through your pitch. And you are clearly identifying a solution that solves a problem for your customer. So that is what unifies it as you are thinking about how to adapt it. Now, I do like to encourage people to think somewhat about the audience. I think that you can deliver a pitch to many different audiences. It can be the same pitch that works very effectively if you have already gathered a lot of feedback. But for people who are new to pitching, I think this is a really important thing to keep in mind. So there are lots of opportunities to pitch, and we at the Institute see many of those happen. In particular, as we're talking about the competitions, right? Your audience is panel of judges who are experienced professionals who hear pitches often, either through our competitions or through their own work in a variety of ways. But they're also friendly judges. And so I like to really emphasize this because their goal is to give you feedback to improve. They want you to feel like you are learning something and developing your idea and your skill set. So that's really important to know, right? When you're imagining what this audience will be like, I want you to recognize that they are there to support you in your growth and your learning. You also are going to be thinking about times when you're going to do your pitch in front of a mentor. Maybe it's a professor that you have or somebody who's in a particular industry. You might do your pitch actually directly to your customers, or you might do your pitch in front of people that you'd like to join your team. And so sometimes those audiences are different, right? And you can think about what do they need from me through this pitch? And a couple of ways that that might show up as differences or as things to pay attention to are remember that your audience may not have a technical background, right? So you might be very specialized in terms of what you do, but your audience needs to be able to understand it very easily in order to be compelled to action for it. It also might change how you dress or how you stand or sit while you're presenting and what materials you have. So those are really important things just to keep in mind. And again, if it's a competition, you're always welcome to ask, what can I expect on the day of the competition? All right. The other thing that's really important as you think about your pitch is that the goal is to engage your audience. Even if they are not going to be interacting directly back with you during your pitch, it is not really a straightforward presentation of information. It's really about capturing the minds and the hearts of that audience and giving them a clear call to action that they can act on, right? So you're really looking for what will motivate them and engage them as well. There's so many great examples. I think all of us are really familiar from marketing of different brands that have their pitches, right? And they have a unified sort of look and feel of their brand and their request of us as customers of what they might want to do. They also, I'm sure, have executives who are practicing the pitches in front of other people who manage financial elements of it, or other people who might be interested in partnering with them. But taking a look at all of those great examples that are out there and seeing what really resonates for you or what brings up questions for you, like where do you get confused about what they are offering and what problem that's solving, is a really great way to learn and then reflect back on your own work as you're developing your pitch. And then I like to say, this is maybe a personal interest of mine. I really want you to take a minute as we go through this workshop and as you think about getting ready to pitch, what your own mindset is around this. So I mentioned, intentionally that our judges are very friendly and are there to give you feedback that helps you grow. I'm curious, what are some things that maybe feel nerve-wracking about doing a pitch? If you can share those in chat, we really want to hear them. It's very common. We all have something, right? So for some people, it might be that they don't have a lot of experience with public speaking, or they know that they talk very fast and that they need to slow down and be clear. It might be that they don't have everything figured out for their idea. Great. Not knowing what the most important part is to emphasize is really important. So we can talk about that. And so, there are so many questions. What we really try to instill is that your mindset matters. And so with these competitions, of course, there's a finish line and there are awards given for those who really have a standout night with their pitch. But it's really about the learning experience. So we're here to help you think about that. Any experience that you have with your pitch, whether it's informal or in a competition, can really help you learn and develop those skills. And that is the true sort of award of anything that you might do with your venture. And then the other thing I like to say right off the top is, as we talk about this, remember that the process is iterative. So again, if you are thinking of a little bang pitch that's 90 seconds, what I want to encourage you to keep in mind is that it's really intended to be an early stage competition. So you might not have all of the information. You're going to be using it as an opportunity to get feedback. You're going to continue to work on that idea. And over time, for instance, if you progress in Big Bang, or if you take it into your own sort of work later, it will continue to evolve. And so know that as we are talking about things, it really depends on your context, where you are with your idea. And then also, as you get more comfortable pitching and you learn more about your audiences, what they need to hear from you. So going in with that mindset of one, you're there to learn, and two, that it will take a lot of iteration to get to a comfortable place with your pitch is really helpful, I think. All right, and then the final thing I will kind of say as a tip to start us off is that simplicity is an art form. And one of the most frequent trouble spots that we see people running into is they either feel the need or they have the desire to share too much information in their pitches. So we like to remind everybody that creating space and refining things so it's very clear and concise is really valuable. And that can help you with that engagement for your audience. So again, it's a little bit of a craft to be able to take the technical pieces of putting together a pitch and then practice and refine it. But keep that in mind, in the back of your mind as we move forward. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the pitch structure and the content. And I share a little bit about this. Again, I want to refer back to some of the previous workshops that we've done, and we have upcoming workshops as a great opportunity to get more information with your pitch. I also really encourage you to use this time frame to engage with mentors, to engage with other people who are happy to listen to you and give you that feedback. Even people who are not familiar with what you are working on can tell you some really valuable information. Did they understand what you are offering? Do they understand who you want to either purchase or engage with your service or your product? Do they understand why what you have to offer is unique? So we're going to take a look at this. This is a formula that we use. There are many others out there, but I think it works very effectively, especially if you're thinking about that 90-second pitch. It's going to need to be very concise. You think of it almost as like one or two sentences, and then time it out. And again, if you have a longer pitch time frame, you can include more information. But when you do, you want to be selective. You want to be strategic about what information you are including. So as part of the process, we'll talk in a little bit about how you might approach developing your pitch. But I like to just clarify this framework, right? So the first question that you need to address in your pitch is, what are you offering? Being specific is really important, and it's part of that iterative process of getting to that level of specificity, so that it's really clear what it is that you are either selling, developing, making, offering for other people. And then who is your target customer? So we do a lot of work with different people around how to identify their target customer. And what I would say is, again, if you're very early stage, it's an opportunity to really think about this, and then also to be engaged in conversations. Those customer calls that are a requirement for our programs are really valuable to get clear about it. And I would say, again, this is an area of potential confusion for many people as they start working on this. Sometimes the people who will be purchasing your services are not the same people who will be using them, right? So you want to really think about that. Who's making some decisions as you're working on this? And again, recognizing that the information that you present when you've done the thinking through comes through to the judges in a competition. So getting as clear as you can about who your target customer is. Another question I have heard come up is, you might think that this has a very broad application, and that's great. I encourage people who are at early stage to really focus more specifically on who their audience is, and then as you move on, you can develop that potential for additional, a wider audience. But if you are in doubt, I would say go a concrete description of who can benefit from your pitch, and then, or from your product or service. And then your value proposition. Why is this valuable, right? And so this really, I think, steps into the customer's shoes, if you will. It engages empathy and understanding of what their needs are. And so starting to really look at how this is a solution to a problem that they have, that they would be willing to invest their time or their money or their energy into using or acquiring. In many of our competitions, right, you'll be able to look at, or in your own work, really looking at bigger things like the market trends and what the market size is. And that's valuable if you're able to do that for Little Bang. We encourage you to be thinking about that. My note would also be, though, to go for accuracy, right? So we're not looking for a more general guesstimation. We're looking for what the best evidence is able to tell you so that you can help to articulate, quantify it, and make it clear where that information is coming from as you're pitching. Because I do think that that is a question that comes up when we hear from judges of they're not sure where people are getting their estimates for that. So again, the customer calls are often the best way to make sure that what you are saying is your value proposition is actually what's valuable to your potential customers. So that is it. I meant to mention earlier, I will say this again. When we talk about the importance of looking at those requirements in this workshop, we're really focusing on the pitches and any visuals that are accompanying you in a pitch, specifically in a competition. But there are other elements that you are required to do and submit. And the one that I would say gets overlooked the most by participants is those customer calls, right? So it's not, it's required because it is really meant to inform and come through in your pitch. And so there's that requirement. Don't forget about it just because that's not what we're talking about today. It really does show through those who have been talking to their customers when they're doing a pitch. You can really hear that through their presentation. All right, so I'm going to pause here before we move on to the next session and ask if we have any questions that are being entered in the chat that relates to what we've already covered, and see if there is anything we can address before we move forward.
Joanna, oh, I'm so sorry.
Great.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I hear that required. So Nikki will answer for Little Bang, and then it's different as you progress through Big Bang, but let's start with Little Bang.
For Little Bang, there's a total of 5 customer calls and a summary of what you learned from those calls. The templates are on the Little Bang website. For the Big Bang, round 2 requires 20 customer calls with a summary written up on those. And then should your team advance or you advance to round 3, an additional 10 customer calls are required for round 3.
Great. And another question is, what's the best way to engage the audience within that 90-second pitch timeline? That's a really great question. Angela's going to touch on some of this. I will share from my own experience. What I see as really helpful is when you feel confident, when you have been practicing and you are able to be really present in the moment, which is challenging, right? We're all at different stages of speaking publicly and how we feel about what we are presenting. But when you are able to really make eye contact and to have that relaxed body posture is one of the most effective things that you can do. I think that openness as you're presenting. I also think, again, for me, it's being aware of the level of vocabulary or the technologies or the specific data that will be accessible to the audience. And so often in our work, we're helping people simplify what is maybe a very technical information that they know from their work into something that you think about it as your grandmother could understand, right? Or often like if you were to go to like a 6th grade classroom and try to explain what your pitch is, like how would you do that? And practicing this, right, and getting feedback ahead of time. You can tell often by delivering your pitch in practice forms to a lot of different people when you hit that stride of, this is something that a lot of different types of people or people with different backgrounds and levels of education or experience really resonate with. And so we'll share more tips in a minute from Angela, and then we'll come back around if you still have questions about this. All right. So Angela will take it away.
Hi, I don't have my camera turned on right now, just to minimize some of those technical issues that we were having. So I apologize for that. But let's move on. So let's talk about some of the things, the concrete things that you
Oh, Angela, I think we've lost your audio.
Can you hear me?
There we go. You're back. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll move forward. So the first thing that you can do, obviously, is to be about that is up to you. And I'm going to encourage you to look at your process that I'm sure you've already developed for preparing for class presentations or similar type engagements. You can use mind mapping, visual organizers, note cards, whatever works for you to get yourself organized. Go ahead and do that. But I want to talk a little bit about some specific things that you can pay attention to that are going to be really effective for you. Okay. So and we're just trying to advance the slides here. Sorry about that. So the first thing is to very carefully consider the words that you use, because we know that words are very powerful, and that they mean different things to different people. So I'm going to ask you to carefully consider the words that you're using based on who your audience is. So if you are, for example, pitching to competition judges who are industry leaders in the field, you might speak differently than you would to other students that you are trying to convince to join your team, for example, or a particular class of students that you're presenting to. You might use slightly different language. I want to encourage you to include all the important facts, but to avoid overly technical industry jargon. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Um, and one way to really go about this is to just write your pitch out. Actually, just write it down on a piece of paper or type it into a document so that you can look at it with some distance, get some perspective, and reflect on the words that you're choosing to include. And the other thing, and you're going to hear this quite a few times from us, is to practice your delivery. As Joanna said, practice it with different types of people so that you know that what you're saying is being understood by your audience. And you want to make sure that your pitch has the intended impact and that it's easy to present without referring to your notes, because it can be distracting to the judges if you have notes. You can have notes, but we find that your pitch is a little more impactful if you actually have it memorized as much as you can. Okay. So the next thing is to align what you're saying with the visuals that you are showing the audience. I'm going to again stress the importance of reading the instructions for each competition so you know ahead of time what you're going to be allowed to have with you during the pitch and what the requirements are for visuals. Because being uninformed could actually lead to you being disqualified, and we don't want that to happen to anyone. But again, you're going to align your pitch with your visuals and make sure your words match the visuals that you're showing. You want to consider, for example, a poster and a slide deck. Those are two very different delivery mechanisms. And so you're going to need to use different approaches for your visuals on those. Okay. Let's talk. Oh, we've got a slide issue again. Hold on just a second. Let's talk a little bit more specifically about technical jargon. And what I mean when I say jargon is specific terms that maybe are used in your field, technology, research settings, for example, that may not be understood by people outside of your field. You want to try to avoid being too technical. Again, know your audience. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I'm going to read you a sentence that is chock full of jargon, and then I'm going to read you another way of saying that sentence that is more easily understood. So hang with me and hopefully I can pronounce all this correctly. So we've developed a novel peptidometric inhibitor that targets protein-protein interactions at the cellular level to mitigate cytokine storms. Okay, that is very difficult to understand. And what may happen if you say something that technical is that you lose the attention of the judges because they're sitting there trying to figure out what you just said rather than paying attention to what you're saying now. So a better way to say that is we created a new medication that acts like a safety switch for the immune system, stopping it from attacking the body during an infection. Okay, says the same thing, but in much simpler to understand terms. Here's one more. The device features a high-efficiency photovoltaic crystalline silicon substrate with a low thermal coefficient. A better way to say that might be our solar panels stay cool and keep working at full power, even on the hottest summer days when traditional panels sometimes fail. Just a couple of examples, a couple of ways that you can simplify what you're saying. Okay. I want you to be aware of also your visual presentation, which is not just your words that you're saying, but how you are saying them. And the first thing is that you want to sound friendly and confident. And like Joanna mentioned with the little bang, being able to connect with your audience during that 90-second time frame, it's not much time. And when you're friendly and confident, you make a much faster connection with the audience. And actually, they may trust you more, trust what you're saying. So your physical presence should match the quality of your data. Okay. You want to look the part. You want to look professional to go along with your professional words. You want to project your voice and use an appropriate tone, which means you sound approachable and confident. Try not to yell because that sounds angry, but to actually just project your voice to the back and the sides of the room. And change your inflection to portray serious versus uplifting events because there's a difference there. Then let's talk about your body language quickly. That nonverbal communication, again, is essential for trust and building credibility with the audience. We know that there's extensive work on body language, and then there are even there's been research done on how much of communication is nonverbal, and you've probably heard this stat, but about 7% of your communication is what you say, is your verbal delivery. About 38% is actually your tone of voice. So if you come off as approachable and likable, that is a huge chunk of how people will perceive you. And then your body language, specifically your facial expression, makes up about 55%. So smile, make eye contact, use those kinds of things to your advantage. Okay. Your nerves. As Joanna mentioned, a lot of us have sometimes a significant amount of fear around getting up in front of other people and speaking. And I want to encourage you to do what you need to do to calm down when you're feeling nervous. One thing is to notice what you tend to do when you're nervous. Do you fidget? Do you move around a lot? That could be distracting for the judges. So I want you to practice in front of a mirror, bring awareness to what your tendencies are so that you can begin to eliminate those tendencies. And then practice whatever grounding techniques you have, whether it's deep breathing, going for a walk, meditating. Just make sure that you put those in play when you're preparing to do a presentation. And then dress for success. This is actually a team that competed in Little Bang?
Little Bang and Big Bang.
And Big Bang. Okay. And they match. They match their brand colors. They match each other, so they are cohesive as a team. And they are very professional. So I just wanted to share that example as to show you, appropriate dress for the competitions. They look great. Okay. Let's talk a little bit, and I know I'm going very quickly through this, but I want to make sure we have time for your questions. A little bit about the use of effective visuals. Don't use visuals just for the sake of having a visual. Choose visuals that increase the clarity and understanding of what you're saying. So graphics you can use to simplify complex information. Charts, diagrams, and infographics all can break down data and put it into digestible pieces so that someone can very quickly look at your poster or look at your slides and understand what you're trying to get across. You can use graphics to reinforce your key points. Make your presentation very memorable, and reinforce your brand so that if you have brand colors, you would put, a liberal use of those brand colors in your graphics, makes the whole presentation more cohesive. Okay. And then we come back to practice, practice, practice. We cannot say this enough. Practice in front of a mirror, practice with your friends, practice with professionals or mentors who may be willing to give you some tips. But come into the room feeling confident and ready to go. And the way to do that is with lots and lots of practice.
All right. So before, as we encourage you to start adding some questions into chat, I'm going to just share just a little add-on to that. Again, we really believe in the importance of team approaches or interdisciplinary contributions. And again, that can mean that you have multiple people on your team, or it can mean that you work with people as advisors or as mentors. So when Angela was talking about, the importance of your visuals, conveying things very clearly, maybe that's not your strength, and that's okay. We really encourage you to start to really think about who you can partner with, right? There might be somebody who is really great at looking at visuals and helping you simplify those, or that kind of thing. And it may be that, you need to have advisors who really understand the financial aspect if that's not your area of strength. No one is expected to have everything be within their skill set or to be great at everything. Instead, what we really teach is that you're building your network so that you have that you can like really ask for that honest feedback, right? And so when you are practicing, it's not just doing it with your friends and family who will encourage you. You need that as well, but also some people where you can say, I really want you to tell me what I can improve. What did you notice about my body? What did you notice about my voice? What was distracting during my pitch? So asking them specific questions so that they can help you be more successful. And then we didn't touch on this too much yet, but if you have teams, right, like having the discussions ahead of time of who is going to be doing the pitching. 90-second pitch, it's really hard to have multiple people delivering a pitch, but sometimes when you have a longer pitch, you definitely do take turns in terms of segments of the pitch. So understanding ahead of time, working through what the roles are and how that you can use your strengths to share the information is a really great way. And, again, as we're talking about going out and doing your customer calls or doing this practice, continue to make note of who could be helpful to you and do they know anyone else who might be interested in listening to your pitch or serving as a customer for your customer calls. It's a really great way, even if you're not moving forward at this point in time, to keep track of your notes and continue to develop. Again, that opportunity to practice and get that feedback. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that we can really turn it over to hear your questions. And really make sure that you have an opportunity to share either, what challenges you're concerned about, or things that you're excited about that you want to talk with others about while you have this great group on the call.
Yeah, hi, my name is Aditya. I recently graduated from UC Davis just this fall, and
Well,
I
I
founded my
think
first
you're
company.
muted. We
Oh,
can't hear you.
hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay, sorry. My name is Aditya. I recently graduated just this fall, and then I founded my own startup, and I'm trying to enter as many competitions as I can right now. And it's first, I want to thank you for spending this time and like making this outlet so I can ask my questions. This is very useful. I would like to ask about team formation and like how should I go about finding a team that will actually be a good product market fit or founder
Mhm.
market fit, excuse me. Um, yeah, that's my question. Right now, I have one other student who's a current student at UC Davis. She's my head of marketing, but I know I'm going to need a bigger team if I want to execute on my idea. So how do I go about doing that?
That's great. Great question. I will also give Nikki a chance to chime in with some of the ways that you can, some of the tools that are available for that. One thing I would say is, as much as you can get clear, I almost say write the job description of what you're looking for, or like identifying those areas, or framing it even as questions, like what could this person bring to your group? Another piece of advice, which might be for, more as you advance along, is to be very intentional with that. So maybe you start out asking, would they like to give you some feedback, right? Getting a chance to understand how they interact with you, because that's also going to be very important. And then really get to a sense of their experience. I'm someone who really thinks that asking them questions about, projects that they've worked on or how they approach being part of a team is really important, right? And then as much as you can, creating a little bit of like a charter or an agreement.
I'm sorry, Angela, I think you cut out again.
I think audio fell off.
Okay.
Give them just a second to come back.
Hmm.
It's been intermittent today. While we're waiting for them to come back, I'm also I'm going to repost the link to the team formation form that we have on the Big Bang website.
All
So
right. Is
every
this any
week,
better?
oh, there we go. I'll finish my thought. Go ahead and finish yours.
Sorry, everyone.
Got it.
Okay.
Oh,
So why don't I do this, Nikki? Why don't you go ahead and share about the tool, and I'm gonna throw those thoughts also into chat. I think the part that might have gotten missed, I was sharing about how you want to be intentional as you enter into these arrangements. So one is a question of how do you identify people who could be a good fit, and then a little bit of like how do you test it out before you get further along and there's maybe money on the table or people have invested a lot of time. And so, Nikki, why don't you talk first about the tools that are available for meeting other people who might be interested in being a part of a team. And then I will chime in again with additional thoughts about how to make sure it's a really good fit.
that's great. Thanks, Joanna. So the link I just put in the chat is a link that we have on the Big Bang website. It asks a series of just a few brief questions. Once a week, I download the list, and anyone that's on it, I just email out to everyone who signed up on the list. There's a couple of defining questions on there, such as, do you have an idea and you're looking for teammates to join you? Or do you have a skill set that you'd like to engage on a team with, and the idea is as part of, someone else on the team. And so then it's up to all of you to reach out to each other and make those connections. It's actually been a really useful and effective tool this year. So hopefully that'll be helpful to you as well.
So I'm just adding to the chat. I think you're right to think about this. And again, the idea of you can invite people to interact with you around your idea first to get a sense for that, right? Especially if it's if you're not clear if they have an expertise, right? You need to understand. It's also a great topic. As you meet people and you're considering bringing them onto your team, you can ask mentors, right? You can sort of have those questions. People who maybe have been in the startup world or have worked on these types of teams before can help you identify what are those things that are really important to have at your different stages of development. I think we all have some awareness, but also some blind spots of what our strengths are, or what a team needs. And that's something that we talk with lots of teams about as well, in terms of doing that. I think an additional piece is just, you can be part of your alumni network. You can reach out in the industry type or the department type areas, looking for people who are at different stages of their career, in terms of what can be helpful. You can also, I would say, if you're not ready to specifically bring somebody on as a full-fledged member, there might be things that you can hire for. And so I know that's very difficult when you don't have funding upfront, but if it's a graphic designer, for instance, or somebody who really enjoys social media, those are things that you can outsource for, but you would, not necessarily consider them a core member of your team. So all really important things to consider. It's a really great question. All right, what other questions do you have? So I'm curious to know how many people are signed up for Little Bang already on our call today. If you could throw in chat, awesome. We're excited about that. What about people who are thinking or have already registered for Big Bang? We're definitely getting excited here to see those great ideas. So I'm going to keep chatting. Great. Thank you for, I hear that somebody is on the wait list for Little Bang. I know that it's tough to wait that out. We got a really great response this year. And so we're excited for that event. It's really a fun evening. I'm going to take another minute just to think through if there's any other advice. Again, if there are any specific concerns or things that make you nervous about it, we'd love to hear that we want to make sure that we're addressing those. Um, and like I said, the other workshops are, every workshop is recorded and they're available to you. So taking a look at those is encourage you to attend these events and other events in the Sacramento area or wherever you are located. There's a lot going on regionally, as well as on the UC Davis campus where you can meet other people who are, interested in either the same causes that you're interested in or interested in doing something that's entrepreneurial or innovative. And so that's a great way. I would also say, in terms of teams, sometimes people are looking for the experience and want to be a part of a team, even if they're not necessarily interested in the same core part of the business venture. And so, yeah, definitely teams can work remotely. I think that's a really great question. So, understanding like who might be interested in working with you. Technology, I think has really shown us that aside from today when we had internet problems, right? Like you just need to plan for those. So, I think that's an important piece is finding ways that you can work with different team members. All right, Nikki, we've got a requirements question. Oh, and Nikki, you're on mute right now. So the question is about the 20
That
customer
technical
calls.
difficulty was my own fault. The 20 customer calls is a hard requirement. It's a bit challenging. It is. And so what I generally encourage teams to do is if you've already registered for round one, or if you plan to, start your 20 calls as if you've moved on to round two early on and just get that process started. Because if you wait until you hear whether or not you've advanced to round two, then you really have a short amount of time to finish those calls. So I would just start working on that deliverable straight off. And we do have a customer call guidelines template on the Big Bang website, which gives you a starting point of what kinds of questions to ask. And generally, one of the last questions in that conversation is asking of the person you're on the phone with if they know of anyone else that you might like to talk to or reach out to. So sometimes if you're at a loss as to who to call up next, asking the person you're on the phone with already, they can sometimes come up with some good contacts for you to keep moving forward.
All right. Well, and Nikki, we had planned to kind of end the call today with our slide that showed the upcoming events, but still having technical difficulties. So so we encourage everybody to take a look at our website and our startup tree. If you have questions, we are here to answer them. So beyond today's call, we're excited to continue talking with you about your venture and want to contribute either through competitions or through our other programs. So thank you all for being here today.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And I put a lot of those links in the chat along the way. So go ahead and take a look at those links and reach out if you have any questions. We'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot.